Hey Chippewas, Shelby Stine here. I am the Assistant Director of Employer Relations here at the Career Development Center. I'm really excited to be joined by one of my recruiter friends. I love catching up with her, and I'm really happy she's willing to join us today and talk a little bit about virtual interviews. So Jamie, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you. Hi, Chippewas. So I am Jamie Delemeester. I work for a company called Dynatrace. We are a software company based out of Boston, but do a lot of recruiting here in Michigan because of our office in downtown Detroit. So I am the manager of recruitment programs, really doing a lot of on-campus recruitment, especially there at CMU, along with a lot of other schools and universities across Canada, Michigan, Ohio, and out in the Boston market.
Fantastic. So, Jamie, the reason you're here today is we're really looking to get an employer recruiter perspective on virtual interviews. So students hopefully are meeting with us. We're having those one-on-one coaching appointments, but we really wanted to hear from you. So I guess my first question for you would be, how is Dynatrace utilizing virtual platforms now? And is this sort of new for you guys? Have you been doing this for a while?
Yes, absolutely. So we've been utilizing virtual interviewing hit or miss here and there in the past. Whether it's first round, second round interviews, especially when we're talking to either candidates that are remote or in a different region, we'll utilize virtual interviewing in that first or second step in the process. Obviously, with the pandemic, that has completely transformed the way that we as an organization utilize virtual interviewing. We are fully virtual and have been the last about 6-8 weeks. And there are no touch points with our candidates now. So everything is done via Zoom, Skype, Google Meetups, whatever type of platform that's out there. But yes, we're utilizing it extensively these days.
So, students come to us with some general questions, one of them being, how is a virtual interview different? Do you have any tips you could share? One thing that we always say is, prepare the same way, just like you would for a normal interview. Do your research, know how to answer some of those common interview questions. But what else about a virtual interview should maybe a student be thinking about before the process starts?
Absolutely. First and foremost, the technology. If you're not comfortable with the platform that the company is using, do your research, run a test run if you can, so that when it comes to connecting with that hiring manager, you're nervous enough, but if you get into technical issues, it's going to ramp up those nerves extensively. So do a test run. If you can do a test run with a friend, right? Make sure your camera's working, your microphones are working, so that everything runs seamlessly when it comes to the interview. I would say another tip or trick I would have is know your environment, right? As we're all stuck at home these days. I got 3 kids and a dog running around here. It's important to really, really understand the environment that you're in. Find a quiet space. Put a note on the door so that your mom or dad or whoever it is isn't knocking on there asking you to do the dishes or your chores. Find an area that has good reception. You really hate to be midway through an amazing interview answer and your internet freezes. Think about what's sitting behind you as well, right? We're getting a really interesting sneak peek into candidates' homes these days. So think about what's around you, the lighting, right? All of these things make a really great impression when you're talking to an interviewer.
All really good advice. And I think it's awesome to hear it from you, because you're the one conducting these interviews. And I think that's really helpful for students to hear. One question that we've gotten, and I'm curious to kind of get your feedback, students that don't have great Wi-Fi connection. Is that an appropriate question if it comes to it? Now, of course, this is, exhausting all of your efforts, try to utilize a hotspot. If it comes to it and you don't have access to Wi-Fi, what would your suggestions be to that student for that interview?
Yeah, so that's a challenging one. One, bring it up to the recruiter ahead of time, right? Do not wait for, your interview to figure out, hey, I should probably make a note of this, right? If you can, you may have to take the interview from a car sitting next to a Starbucks that might have a greater internet reception. Check out what's going on online, right? I know they do a lot of these free internet connections for students these days. that don't have it. So find and do your research, but make sure to let the recruiter or hiring manager know ahead of time, like, hey, here's a challenge that I'm having. They might have some advice as well for you.
That's really good advice. I guess one of the last questions that I have for you. So, virtual interviewing, you did it a little bit before when you had to. Now we're in a time where everything's virtual. What do you predict things will be like after this sort of calms down, which hopefully will be sooner than later? But do you see virtual interviewing sticking around?
I do. Yep, absolutely. I think we probably won't go back to business as normal. Even after this, we're realizing that we can utilize technology so much more these days. So I do foresee it being something that is going to be the norm. Hopefully we go back to the days where you still have that last interview in person, but I foresee your first or second round interviews being virtual. It allows companies now, because hiring managers are going to be used to doing it this way, to speed up the interview process, especially when we're talking to students that have to travel, are dealing with classes and busy schedules as it is. We might be able to just utilize, doing an after hours interview or an interview between classes and not have to take a day away from school.
Really good point. And I have a feeling you're probably right.
Yes. Yep. So being prepared, right? Treat these interviews like they are a final interview. Think of if they're not casual, just because you're doing it from your couch where you were watching Netflix for 5 hours, right? It's still an interview.
Yeah.
Dress like it's an interview. Come prepared, as you were saying earlier, right? Do your research just like you would if you were sitting in our office. Put on a suit. It's okay, right? Make a great, great first impression. We've had too many times where it's almost like the candidate didn't realize, oh, they're going to see me in my house, in my sweatpants, right? And they were not prepared, and it made a very terrible first impression. So still prepare like it's going to be, an on-site interview.
Really, really good advice. I so appreciate your time.
Yeah.
I think it would be wrong of me to not talk about our services at the Career Development Center. And Jamie, you could probably attest to this. Yes. Practice makes almost perfect.
Yes, but as close to it.
Right. But same goes, when campus was in session and things were happening on campus, we were doing mock interviews there and offering that in-person help. But students, take advantage of this. You can set up an appointment with a career coach. You very well could see me on the other end of the line, but let's practice those mock interviews and keep those things in mind that Jamie mentioned, because sometimes, unless you actually have the background behind you and you're getting yourself into that real life scenario, you could find that you might need to tailor things a little bit, and that's where we can definitely offer some advice. But Jamie, I so appreciate your time. This was wonderful. It's good to see you, even if it's just virtually.
Yes, hopefully we'll be back in the fall on campus meeting with students. My fingers are crossed for it.
That's definitely the goal, and we really appreciate Dynatrace's partnership. So let's be sure to stay in touch. So students, we hope to see you soon. Make sure you schedule that appointment with us. Bye, Jamie. Thank you so much.